Hey guys, welcome back to my sewing room. Today we're going to be doing a sew with me on the balloons and bobbins. This was in the Fat Quarter Shop's sew sampler this month, and this is just a fun kind of spring project that we're going to do, and I'm really excited to do this. This is definitely not something that I would have chosen myself, probably not the fabrics, but I think it's going to be a lot of fun. So definitely let's check it out. So I'll put that right there so we can use it as a reference. Let me get it where y'all can see it. Probably not. I'm having trouble with camera angles this morning. Okay, so I have pre-cut and labeled all my pieces. I do have the alphabetties, but I kind of end up liking these stickers a little bit more because they stick a little bit and they stay with it. I don't generally like to use consumables, products that I have to keep buying over and over again, but I actually reuse these stickers a couple times on different projects before I let them go to the wayside, so I don't feel too bad about that. So we'll just hop right in here. I've got all our pieces cut, and again, we're going to be doing this pattern. This comes in the sew sampler box. It's the only way you can get it. I even looked on Fat Quarter Shop's website just a minute ago. You can't get this pattern without being a member. So this is one advantage to having that membership. So I cannot share the cutting instructions with you, but I thought you might like to walk through sewing this block with me. So the first thing we're going to do is take two of our C blocks, and I'm just going to bump that over to my previous one, and a couple of our M blocks. We're going to need two for each corner, and we're just going to snowball the corners here. So I think it's probably better for you guys with the light off. Okay, so sometimes if the background, this fabric is really light, I'll go ahead and mark the lines on it because it's hard to see in the presser foot, but I can see this one pretty well. So I'm gonna just wing it. I have my seam tape on there. Sorry, my extension table wasn't all the way seated, and as you can see, it's definitely had some love. It's probably about time to redo it, but you know, who has time for all that? So I really think this is gonna be a fun spring kind of feeling on the quilt. I'm excited about it, and one of the things I really like about these sew sampler boxes is I would never have picked up this exact fabric or this pattern and sewed it out, and I'm having so much fun kind of getting out of my own head. I don't have to think about it and pick and choose, hem and haw. It just comes and it's all put together, and all I have to do is start cutting and sewing. Fat Quarter Shop, can you cut them out for me, please? That would be easy. So again, I'm just snowballing these corners. And I'm going to go ahead, the next step in here is to take one piece of B, and this one, it's very similar, but it's a little bit, let me snip this one off. It's a little bit wider. So this is going to be the center part of our flower. And I'll move that over. So we're going to do the same thing with it. And then all of these are going to be pressed in the same fashion. They press the left towards the white and the right side towards the color fabric. And I don't know, I think it saves my little cutter under the bobbin if I don't use it every single piece. So I tend to chain piece and then cut them all apart at the end, and that way hopefully I'm not using my button quite as often to cut those threads. So now I've got my three cut and ready to go. Get this guy out of the way and we can give it a quick press. I like to set my seams. Oh, iron's off. I like to do that. At least with this Aliso, it's really clear if the iron is off or on because it doesn't retract the little feet. Okay, so now that I've set my seams, I'm going to grab this cute as a button little cutting mat. This actually came, this is from Fig Tree. So this came in a couple subscription boxes ago, but isn't that just adorable? And it totally matches like the color on these other parts of the prints. So I think it's like perfect for that print. Anyways, not that you need to match your cutting mat to what you're doing, but nobody's going to stop me. Okay, so I'm going to trim these off. They've already been sewn, so they don't have to be super precise, but I'm going to get them 1/4 of an inch. Sorry if I'm scooting my face in front of you. I just can't see that white line. All right, where's my thread catcher? There it is. Sorry, if I don't catch it as it's coming off my table, it just makes a mess everywhere. And unfortunately in here, I have carpet. And if I ever redo this room, I'll probably opt for something else. But for now, we have carpet. Keep wanting to put my clapper up here. That's not going to help me with this ruler, or excuse me, this rotary cutter. Okay, so now we've got those all trimmed up. So again, these are slightly different. You've got your narrower ones, those are going to be the outsides, and all of these we are going to press. This one, the one on the left side, is going to press towards the white, and the one on the other side, the right side, we're going to press towards the yellow. And that's so that when we get to putting our whole flower together, they all nest really well. So I like to flip these over so that it's easier to press them that way. And I'm gonna just press those. And I did starch these fabrics because I knew there was gonna be a little bit of bias work here. I'm actually kind of a habitual starcher, and I do use steam as well. I know some people don't like to do that. They feel like it distorts their blocks, but I feel like I get better results this way. Okay, so I'm going to throw those under a block and let them cool off. And we're going to do the section of the leaves. So for our leaf, we're going to make, let's see if I can get you, we're going to make this section right here. So the first part that we did were those 3 pieces for the top. Now we're going to do this middle section, and then we'll do the bobbin. And I may kind of flip-flop a little bit to take advantage of pressing times. Okay, so first we start off with 2 of our pieces of E, and again we have 2 pieces of M that we're going to go with it, and we're just going to go on opposite corners, and we're going to go corner to corner like we did on the other one. So and I'm just lining up this corner with my red seam tape and the other corner with my needle. Again, if it was not showing up for me on that white on white, if this print had more white in it, I probably would go ahead and draw the line just to help me see where it was when it was under the needle, because that seems to be harder. And again, I'm just trying to save my little knife under the sewing machine. It feels like I do so much sewing that inevitably it's got to be a lot of wear and tear on it. Okay, so that was my last one. So again, I'm going to move these out of the way and go ahead and take advantage of being able to set these seams before I cut them. I think the other ones are probably finished. Let me get my cutting mat back over there. Sorry, I'm kind of playing Tetris. I'm not accustomed to having my ironing board over here. In fact, I see people post all the time some great organizational things that they have in their sewing room so that they don't have to walk across it to get things. And I don't really do it intentionally, but most of my stuff, it feels like I walk from one end to the other quite frequently. And I always think to myself, well, at least I'm getting my steps in. You know, if I have to get up 10 times to iron a block, then I didn't just sit on my stool and sew the whole time. I was getting some steps as well. It's probably silly. Okay, so we're going to press towards the white on both sides of this block, and I'm going to let this set up with the clapper. And we'll get back to sewing our flower parts together. All right. Get my flower from down here. So I've got my 3 pieces of my flower. Sorry, I don't have a design board over here. Where are they? Okay. Okay. I really do just love these little design boards because they let you put everything together so that you don't get anything in the wrong order. So those are the 3 pieces that are going to make up the flower. And when we sew it in, the 1/4" seam will kind of make it a little bit smaller. Sorry, for those of you... Hey boys, that's enough. So, life with littles. For those of you who don't know, we have a family of 6 and we homeschool, so we are together all the time, and I do not get a chance to film when the kids aren't around, so sorry for the interruption. All right, so I'm going to nest these seams, and let me see if I can get you a better angle at that. When you have one seam going one way and the other seam going the other way, they will, so this one's going that way and this one's going towards it, so they will sit together. As you just rub your fingers back and forth, they will sit in and nest nicely, and then that will ensure that when you sew it together and open it up, your points will match. So that's one of the advantages if you don't press open, is it gives you a really tight guide for getting those corners nice and sharp. Not that you can't get wonderfully sharp corners pressing open, it's just you have to think about it a little bit more. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and do both of these at the same time, and then I'll press them both open. So again, because of the way we press with the one side going up and one side going down, these will nest again. And those are all in the instructions here. I haven't modified what they gave us this time. Sometimes I like to use, you know, the flying geese method or triangles on a roll to make life easier, but I didn't have to this time. Okay, so I'm going to move those out of the way so we can let these sit under the clapper now. And I'm going to set my seam. And this seam we actually are going to press open because there's a couple things coming together. So I'm just going to press one way first, oops, and then the other. And then I'm going to let that set for just a minute. Okay, so then I'll put my clappers on and we will get back to our little piece of the leaves. So here we've got our 2 pieces of the leaf. We're going to put them together here like that. And so the first thing that we need to do is we're going to put 2 little end caps, 2 pieces of our K block, which is this one. It's so funny, these were all like kind of close. J, K, L, and I think all are 1.5 inch pieces. And they just seem like they wanted to all get mixed up. So thank you for having alphabetties, or actually these are Lori Holt stickers. Okay, so we're just going to add 1 piece to each end and then press that open. And I do like to have this together because I wouldn't want to accidentally, I mean, you have enough pieces in the whole kit, but if you did them all like this, so then they wouldn't come together and make the actual leaf pattern, the leaf pattern that we want it to make. Okay? So I like to work off that design bar. It keeps me, with all the distractions in this house, from getting mixed up and sewing the wrong thing. So we'll sew these 2. part. Get my clappers back down and my flower. Okay, so again, we're going to set the seam and then press it open towards the white. I'm sorry, not press it open. We're going to press it towards the white. And then I'll put my clappers back on it again. And then we're good to go. Huh. I don't like the way that corner's coming together. It's not terrible, but it is not the best. So I think I'm actually going to rip that. Sorry, this is all part of doing all of our sewing lives. We all like to just roll right through it, but I find that if I just go ahead and pick it, I'll be happier in the end. And we all do it. One of the first clinicians that I went to see in person, and actually it was my first real quilting learning class, was joking and said something about not having a seam ripper because they didn't ever need it. And I didn't realize at first that they said that in jest. I thought they were being serious. And I was like, oh wow, I'm totally outclassed because I am not above picking stitches, making it right. It's never going to be perfect, but I can usually improve on it just a little with a little extra work. The good news is I didn't actually press those open yet, so they won't be too bad. You know, the worst thing about when you pick stitches is trying to pull all the little cottony things off, and if you just sew over them, you will never get them out of the seam. Or maybe you could, but for me, it seems like it's a whole lot easier to just go ahead and get them now. Takes a couple extra minutes. Isn't that like the story of your life in the craft room? Whatever. No matter what you do, if you just spend a couple extra minutes on the front end, it saves you a ton of work on the back. And it's not always easy to stop and make those corrections, but I feel like your end result is just going to be so much better if you do. All right, press that. Get the fuzzies off of this side, and we'll just try that again. See, I think the seam I showed you nesting was this one, and I worked real hard to get it nice and pretty for you on camera, and then this one I just kind of went fast. Pedal to the metal. I'm kind of bad about that. Okay. So we will try that again. This time, I'm going to be extra careful. And what it may be is that I may have gone to shift this corner and like moved it to get it lined up. And when I did, I wasn't holding this seam together as well as I could. But you know what? I'm just going to throw a pin in it. When in doubt, I'm just going to pin it. All right. I'm going to stop before I get to them, but I'm going to get close. All right. I didn't really intentionally use two pins there. I just grabbed my little house pins, and they're so small. I happened to grab two, and I just roll with it. They're so tiny that you don't feel it. That's so much better. Okay, let's try this again. All right. Press that over. Move these down so I can have some room. All right, let's let that guy sit now. All right, and so we had our side pieces added to, oops, that's the wrong way, to our leaf pattern. Now we're going to add the top and bottom blocks. So for that, we're going to add 4 pieces of J, and I just like to count them out so I know what I'm doing. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, so we're just going to do 1 across the top and 1 across the bottom on each side. started trying to sew these out with the exact pattern that comes with Fat Quarter Shop's recommendation. In the beginning, I was always so concerned about making something like almost permanent in my house. I feel like I didn't have any flexibility to be creative. I just wanted something that decoratively would look good in my room or in the kids' room. And this has really opened up a whole new level of a chance to be creative and try new things, and things I thought I would hate, like foundation paper piecing, I really thought was for the birds. And I did the Petty Four quilt with Fat Quarter Shop last fall, and I love it, like absolutely love it. So I definitely encourage you to get outside of your comfort zone, try something new, do it in a way that isn't how you have always done it. And I think, learning in person is fantastic. I wish I could do more of that. The reality is that I have the kids all the time and I can't always take them with me. So the option to learn and do stuff on YouTube with other creators and see what their process is has really been priceless for me. Because, even though it's not live and in person, it is definitely a community. So, okay, I'm gonna throw my clapper on that. Oops, there we go. Okay, so what's next? Oh, I didn't press these open. So on these two seams in this pattern, they want you to press these two open. So we'll swap-a-roo, and I can press these two open. All right. So while those are sitting, we can finish up our leaves. Okay, so I've got now a right side and a left side leaf. Oh, I want to trim that just a second. Just see a couple extras. Probably really doesn't matter, but I figure not much, just enough to get in my way though. Okay. Get that out of my way. Okay. So we've got everything almost together on this leaf. The last thing we're going to do is add one strip of our F pattern. So that's going to go right down the center. And we'll put that right there. So I'm just going to sew that on both sides, and then I will press it towards the green, which is kind of the more usual way to press. I'm going to go towards the darker colors, but I'm going to bump our flower out of the way. It should be good. And I'm going to set my seams. And then I'm going to press it towards the green. It's going to be a little flipping around, and I'm going to have a little trimming to do on this block, but that's okay. All right, so I'm going to put my blocks on, let that sit up. And I think this block top, the flower part, came out just right. So the next thing we're going to do... All right, guys, Houston, we have a problem. I was editing this video and realized I made a mistake in my block. So this is the first block that I made. I made this one. I read the instructions. Everybody was in bed and asleep, and I probably had fewer distractions. Then I made this block to just get familiar with the pattern and be ready to film. and this one. And then in the video, I made this one. And you see what I forgot to do? I totally forgot, oops, wrong one. I totally forgot to add this corner to each side of our flowers. So this is still an okay block, but it's really kind of clunky. So I'm gonna go ahead and rip this seam. It should be fairly easy. I'm just gonna add the snowballs to the outside corners, but for the rest of the video, you are gonna see me working on the original piece, which is gonna have this square bottom and not the real flower shape. So I'll show you pictures of this once I fix it, but just a disclosure, I'm gonna do that, but you'll see some blocks throughout that are kind of including this big clunky one here. Sorry about that. Little humble pie never hurt anybody, right? All right. Okay, so this is the retake, and here is my flower. I've taken that back apart. Now, actually in the instructions, it says before you attach these two together to go ahead and attach these to each corner. At the end of the day, it really doesn't matter which direction you do it in. And this is kind of the way that Lori Holt always seems to do her half square triangles also. Instead of making a bunch of half square triangles and having it dance around on the bias while you're working with it, she already gets that piece together. And then you have less bulk in this seam that we just pressed open, because instead of having this rolled over on the back side, you just have the one little one in the front. I hope that makes sense. So if you follow the instructions exactly, you would do this step before you sewed these together, but I like doing it at the end anyways. So that is probably why I forgot it. And again, I'm just using that line tape on my machine and getting this corner directly under my presser foot with the needle. And off we go. Okay. So now I'll set that seam. My entire table here is a cutting mat, and I do like that I can kind of cut where I want to, but I usually use this for squaring up quilts at the end so that I can kind of preserve it, and the smaller ones are the ones that I can replace because they get the most use. I am not doing this well. There we go. My giant rotary. Everything's always out of place, isn't it? Okay, so then we're just going to press that towards the white on both, and then we'll move on with the rest of our block. Is our bottom spool or bobbin part. When I first looked at this pattern, I thought those were flower pots, but nope, those are bobbins, which explains why, you know, for most of our spool patterns, you kind of see that they snowball this corner and this corner so that it looks more like those old, older antique spools, but this one's not quite going to do that. Okay, so in order to build that part, we only need a couple pieces. We're going to need our center piece, which I have the yellow flower, so I'm going to need the pink stripe. And then we're going to need 2 of G. And we're going to need 2 of, oh, which white is that? See what I mean? I. I probably could have figured it out, but it's just easier to look back at the pattern. Okay, so first we're going to connect the outside parts of our bobbin to the middle. So I'm going to just fold that in and fold that in, and then sew those on, and then we'll press those open. that knife quite a lot, but I just try to minimize it. If I have the opportunity to push more than one thing through, I try to do it. Because, I mean, it is a feature on my machine. It's part of what I like about my machine. But I just figure, you know, like the kids, don't wear it out, right? Don't just raise and lower those car windows. All right, so I'm going to set those seams. This one I'm going to press towards the white. And the same thing on this other side. And then I will set my blocks in. I always kind of tend to stand my blocks up. I don't know why. I feel like they cool off better between blocks. And I usually have these blocks. They're a little bit bigger and heavier. Let's see if I can get it in there. I love them. They're actually big enough. So this is a rather large block. I can't remember what the finished size. 16 inches. So the fact that I can put this block, I can't get far enough away. It's like me trying to look without my glasses on. I give up. So, but it's enough to cover this whole block from one side to the other. And I need a couple of them because it's a wider block, but I love them. Okay. Sorry, side note. Okay, so that's set up. I think we're good there. So now I'm just going to sew the top and bottom of our bobbin on, and then I can press that. So yeah, for these sew sampler boxes, I'm trying to really, for the most part, follow the pattern. If it says press one way, that's what I'm trying to do. You know, with the exception of those triangles on a roll or the flying geese, I pretty much try to follow what it says. But my question is, are you the kind of person that likes to press your seams open or to press to one side? Definitely used to hate pressing open seams, and I don't know if I just got better at it or what, but I felt like it was so much easier just to nest the seams, and you couldn't do that when you pressed open. You had to poke a pin and all that mess. But when I have a bunch of seams that come together, I kind of find that I end up pressing open now. As much as I hate to have to do it, I do. But I think there's some people who like never want to press a seam open, and people who never want to press to one side or the other. So I'm interested if you have that type of reaction, or if you kind of go back and forth on what direction is okay. Okay, so this is our flower now. It's all pressed. So on the back, we've pressed those two seams open in the middle. Everything else is pressed to one side or the other. And then we've got our green leaf. Sorry, there we go. And that's going to go right there at the bottom. So I'm just going to flip that up, sew it on, and hopefully by then our bobbin will be finished under the clappers. And there's no seams to nest on this one, so you can definitely pin if you want to. I'm just not much of a pinner unless I have to, and when nothing needs to come and match, I usually am pretty much free for all. Okay, so we've got our bobbin finished, and it's going to go at the bottom of our flower. Just to save a little bit of time, I'm going to go ahead and sew that on, and then I'm going to press the whole thing at the same time. In fact, I can show you my clapper then. Move some of this out of the way though. So first I'm going to just set my seams, and then this top seam I'm actually going to press open. So I'm going to press one way first, and this one I'm going to go ahead and press, and then I'm going to flip this over and press. Maybe. There we go. Press that seam open. And then I can just line up my clutchers. I do need a couple of them to cover this much width. And then I'm just going to leave it. Okay guys, so here we have it, our finished block, our finished corrected block. So this block was a lot of fun. I really did enjoy getting to really step outside of my comfort zone and do something that's just a little less than, not less, a little different than what I normally would have chosen. And I think it's kind of fun to force you to try new things and all of the good stuff. So if you like these videos and you want to let me know what you want to see next, I'd love to hear from you. I'd also appreciate it if you enjoy these, if you would like and subscribe. It certainly helps me out. And I guess that's it. I'll see you next time.